had these little notebooks made for myself, and it has my artwork on it, and they are in my shop if you're interested. So I just wanted to show you these. I have different designs in my shop. They're 5x7. They are blank pages, but I decided that I'm going to fill this notebook up, this little sketchbook. You can use it for sketchbooks. You can use it for journaling, writing notes, whatever you want to do. But I decided I was going to use mine to create just a full sketchbook of children. So many children are abducted, murdered every year in the United States. It's something like 460,000 disappear. Now, not all of those are murdered, thankfully, but it has been weighing on my mind, especially in the news. So many children have been murdered lately, either by their caregiver, their parents, or strangers or acquaintances. So I have decided to create a notebook, a sketchbook with children in it. Just all kinds of children. So that's what I'm doing with this sketchbook. Again, I have these in my shop if you're interested in getting one. I have different designs. And so just if you're interested, I thought I would show you. So this is just some of the sketches that I've been doing. I've got another sketch that I've started, so I wanted to just share the process with you. Now those other sketches, I just used a plain number 2 pencil, but I got out some of my drawing pencils because I thought I wanted to try that. Try doing it with some drawing pencils and see if I can get even some darker darks with some softer lead pencils. But I am going to go ahead and start off with just my regular pencil. So I'm just going to start with her eyes and her eyelashes. And she has beautiful brown eyes. I think I'm going to go ahead and darken that in. What? I got a 6B. I'm going to go ahead and do her pupil really dark with this dark 6B. So to really make a nice drawing, you don't have to have a lot of equipment. You really don't. You don't have to have professional drawing pencils. All you need is a piece of paper and a number 2 pencil with an eraser. That's all you need. Now, I've added a kneaded eraser. I really love kneaded erasers. And I've also added a stump, a blending stump, but you really don't need those. So today I decided that I wanted to try with my professional drawing pencils to see if it would make a difference. But if you watch me as I go through, I really stick to my number 2 regular school pencil. I think that's just what I'm more comfortable with. It's what I'm used to drawing with. But I did give it a little bit of a go. And just to help you out, if you wanted to know, if you're not sure about graphite pencils, and just need just like a little guide to them, let me just give you a quick little guide, the best that I can. Now, drawing pencils are numbered and lettered. The H in the letter, that means that they are hard. The lead or the graphite inside that pencil is really compacted. It's really hard. The stroke that you get is very light. So then the B category of pencils stands for black. Those leads or the graphite inside those pencils are very soft and very they make a very dark stroke. So what you have is at the middle of both categories, the H and the B, is the HB pencil. That's where you'll start from. So if you're going on the H side, the hard side, which is the lighter of the pencils, H pencil is next, going from the HB, and then they start to be numbered as 2H, 3H, 4H, all the way up to 6H. Now, the higher the number of the H pencil, the lighter the stroke will be, the lighter the lead is, because it's more compacted. Then when you go over to the B category, if you start at HB and then you move across, B is the next pencil. It's simply B. They don't say 1B, it's just B. And then the next pencil is 2B, 3B, 4B, and it will go up as high as 12B. And 12B is considered a very dark pencil. So in that one, the higher the number, the darker the pencil. With the H's, the higher the number, the lighter the pencil. So that's something that you want to, just be aware of. Also, you can use charcoals in with your drawings. They have white charcoal if you want some really white highlights, or if you're working on a toned paper like a gray toned, or maybe a brown or beige toned paper. Those are really nice to eke out your highlights since you won't have the white of the paper. So there's other kinds of pencils you can mix in with your H's and your B's. And remember, the HB is like right in the middle. It's the mid-tone of the range. I'm just going to say it like that. So I hope that gives you an idea of how they're numbered and how to pick lights and dark pencils. And as you see, I am using some of the professional pencils in my drawing, especially where I want it to be really dark, like her eyelashes, the pupils of her eye. I went and got a 6B for those. In her nostrils, I'm using a 6B because those are some of my darkest areas on the drawing. So I did go ahead and use some of those professional drawing pencils. And now I have switched to an H, and I decided it was too light, so I went right back to my just regular number 2 pencil. So you see that, I am really partial to just my regular pencil, mostly because I'm out of practice with using my professional drawing pencils. When I was in college now, I used those professional pencils for every doggone drawing. You bet I did. I spent money on them. They weren't that expensive, but in college I didn't have that much money. So you better believe I used them pencils every chance I got. But now I've gotten out of the habit, and I am more used to just sketching really quick with my regular number 2 pencil. So, maybe that'll be part of my challenge for this sketchbook. Not only will I draw a lot of children in here, I will try to mix it up with my drawing supplies. Just use some different drawing supplies so that I can test it out and then let you know how it works out for me, or give you some suggestions based on what I find out. Because really the only way you are going to learn how to draw, or learn what works, learn what doesn't work, is by actually just jumping in and doing the work. I cannot stress that enough, and I will say it until I am blue in the face. You gotta do the work to learn. Watching somebody, that's all fine and good. You do pick up a few things. Reading books, that's all well and good. You do pick up a few things. Watching videos, whatever. But the real learning, the one that is sticking to you, where you really learn, is when you're actually doing it, when you're actually drawing. So I highly encourage you, even if you feel like, all I can draw is a stick man, so what? Draw the best doggone stick man you can and be proud of it. And then, try to add some shape to him. Try to add some volume to him the next time. Give him a little belly. Give him some flabby arms. Give him some bat wings if it's a woman. Give her a bust line. Give her a waist. Give her some hips. If you start out with a stick person, no shame in that. Then you just progress from there. You say, well, let me just try to add some volume. Just give them some little sausage arms or something. And you'll say, oh, I see what works. And then you really start studying people, how they're built, what shapes that their arms and their parts are made out of. And pretty soon you'll be drawing much better just because you are actually putting in the work. So put in the work, people. Put it in. So now you see I'm using my professional pencils even a little bit more here. And I am enjoying it. It's working out. The thing that I don't like about it is I'm constantly switching pencils to go lighter, to go darker, whatever I need to do. And that, I think that is part of the reason I like to stick to my little number 2 just regular school pencil, because I don't have to switch it out. I just press harder if I want it darker, and I just use less pressure when I want it lighter. Her lips are actually pretty dark compared to the rest of her face. She has beautiful little bow shaped lips. They're really pretty. And so I'm trying to build up those layers, and then you'll see I'll use a few different professional pencils with different numbers on them. I did do a really dark B for sort of the part that separates the upper from the bottom lip. Across the highlight of the lip, I went to an H pencil. Now I am just working with another H pencil, just trying to sort of get down some shapes that later will become darker shadows, but I'm just laying out the map across her lips of those highlights and those shapes. And then as needed, I will layer darker pencils on there. Also trying to get those shadows underneath her lips. She has a really pretty mouth, and I don't want to mess it up, so I'm trying to make sure I'm leaving those highlights, but at the same time getting in those nice deep tones as well. Just working on her chin, and now I'm coming again with my paper blender. It's made out of paper. All that is a tightly rolled stump of paper, and it has been sharpened on the end to resemble a pencil point. And I'm just going over my graphite, and it does a beautiful job of smudging it, smoothing that graphite out. It also transfers it from place to place. So if I need a darker area, I can pick up a little bit of that graphite with my blending stump from a darker area and take it to a lighter area. So that is another thing that I love about those blending stumps. But the best thing is I just love the smooth, soft texture it gives for skin. It just really smooths out, especially on this type of paper. Now, this isn't any special drawing paper. This is just regular blank notebook paper. But it still works really well for dry medium like graphite, colored pencil, things like that, as long as you're not pressing too hard. If you press too hard, you could probably leave dents in the sheet of paper that's under it, so you don't want to do that. Also, you see I use my kneaded eraser. I absolutely love kneaded erasers because you can, pinch them off into a really tiny, like a little tiny point, and get into some really tiny areas where you want to lighten it up, and you can get that precision just by pinching that kneaded eraser into a little tiny point. Or if you need a larger spot, you can flatten the eraser out and make it the surface of it larger or round or whatever shape you want. You could even do shape it into a square. So it is really one of my best friends when I'm sketching. It's like my bestest friend. Some of your materials just become your best friends. You can rely on them. You know they're going to be loyal. You know they're going to be consistent. And you can count on them every single time when you need them. So yeah, that's my friend. My friend, the kneaded eraser. So now I am still adding a little bit more shadow, and as you see, her mouth is starting to look more and more three-dimensional, more realistic, and that was what was talking about near the beginning, is the more nuanced you get your pencil, especially the lightness and darkness of it, the more nuanced, the more lighter or darker in the areas where you need it, the more realistic it becomes. So that is, that's a good example of when those professional drawing pencils come in handy, because you can get a much better nuance a lot easier with those different shades of pencils, with those different hardnesses and softnesses of the lead, whereas it's a little bit harder with your regular number 2 pencil, because the lead is the same softness, hardness at all times, and you're relying more on pressure to get the darkness. And even if you put a lot of pressure and build up the layers, you still can't get it quite as dark as you could if you used like a 6B or a 14B pencil. It's never going to get that dark. But you know, I still lean on my little pencil, my little regular pencil. But I'm going to start expanding as this series goes on, my sketchbook series. Every Saturday I'm going to be doing different sketches. Now, I may not always do it in this sketchbook. I may bring out a different sketchbook with different subject matters and different media. It might not always be pencils, but for these first few, it's just going to be some pencil portraits of some children, just because my heart has been weighing heavy about all of the things that have been happening to children in the news that should not be happening. And it's my way to cope. Anytime things get really heavy, I go straight for a piece of paper and a pencil. That is how I deal. That is how I cope with stress. And it just relaxes my mind, gets me completely focused on one thing so that I can push everything else out of my head and just relax and calm down. So art has really been a saving grace for my mental health throughout the years, and it can help anybody. I highly encourage to get yourself a nice beverage, put on some music that you enjoy, get a pencil and paper, and just draw whatever comes to your mind. Draw things that you see around your room, whatever is near you. Go to Pinterest and see if you can come up with some inspiration there. There's just a wealth of well-being in creating art, in my opinion and in my experience. So I highly recommend creating art. Even if you think you're not good at art, you can create. It doesn't matter your talent level. You still can create. You are still an artist. Whether other people like it or not, it does not matter. It's only if it makes you happy and you love and enjoy the process. That's all there is to that. So as you see, I am working really hard on some shadows around her ears. Her hair is in a sort of a little ponytail on top, a little top knot. And I'm just trying to get in some of the darkness of her hair. I am using those professional grade drawing pencils in a very soft B. I'm not sure what that B number is. It is very soft though. It's probably a 6B because her hair is black. And so I want her hair to be some of the darkest areas on the drawing. And of course I'm leaving some light peeking through too, because it's not solid black. When the light hits it, of course it turns into highlights, and it's a lot lighter than that base color black. Also around her ear is sort of in shadow, so I went really dark in the shadows of her ears. And now I'm just pulling her bangs down, her little wisps that are coming out from around her face. And she's also laying her head on her hands. So I'm just going in and getting that arm sort of in there and her little hand curled over the banister. She's sort of holding on to a banister. And I'm just sort of sketching in the map of that, just the outline. And then later I'll come back and shade that in. And I'm just softening up some of those outlines with my blender so that they don't look so raggedy and so, harsh. Just smoothing those out a little bit. And then that banister, just smoothing out those lines as well. And we're just going to continue with her hair with that really dark B pencil. And of course, I'm just doing it in sections. I'm looking for the darkest sections, trying to see what shape they are, and just drawing those in with my pencil. Now what I'm doing here is I'm taking my regular number 2 pencil over some of that dark area that I did with my B pencil, and I'm just going right back over it, and that's called burnishing it. I'm just making it just a little bit darker. I'm pushing that graphite into the paper, and then I'm of course grabbing my blender and blending all of that out so that her hair looks smooth and shiny. And I'm sorry, I did not realize that my camera didn't get the top of her head. So I apologize for that. I didn't realize when I was filming that I was cutting the tip top of her head off. But you get this idea. It's the same technique throughout her whole head of hair. We're just doing lights and darks. Now where I got it a little bit too dark, I'm taking my kneaded eraser and I'm pulling some of that graphite up to lighten up those areas, make it look like a shiny, like a little highlights going across the crown of her head. And she's getting pretty close to finished. So you see her little top knot up there. Now I've pulled her down so you can see what I've done up there. And again, it's just dark and light shapes. And I'm lightening some of those areas up, coming back in, getting some texture work in there right on the edges of that highlight that I took out with the kneaded eraser. Just getting in a little bit more texture into her hair. And again, I apologize for cutting that part off. Did not realize that my camera was not picking it up. I was so focused on drawing, I did not even look up at my camera monitor. So I apologize for that. So her face and her hair is pretty much done. So I'm just going to work on her clothes. I want them to be really dark. The reason I want them to be really dark is because I want it to contrast with her pale skin. So I'm going really dark on the clothes, getting some really deep shadows in there. And I am using one of my darkest B pencils to get that in there. And it's already making her face pop. Just putting that dark color or that dark shade next to that lighter shade. Anytime you want something to pop, put a much darker shade next to it. If it's a light object, if it's a dark object, put a lighter shade next to it and the darker object will pop. It just depends on what you're trying to emphasize in your drawing, on how you want to, kind of show it off. So I'm just going in there. I am just putting in some of those shadows. We're almost done. Maybe 3 or 4 minutes. I don't know. I'm also taking my kneaded eraser, blending some of those edges. And now I'm using a little bit of a lighter pencil and just going over some of those areas with a little bit of a harder lead. So it will be lighter strokes. And I don't want to draw every single thing in. I really want the emphasis to be on her face, so I'm not going overboard with the details of that banister, of her hand, of her clothes. The main thing I wanted her clothes to do was cast that dark shadow near her face so that her face becomes more obvious and the focus gets on her face. So that's the main thing I want to do. I don't want to fill it up with a lot of different details because I do want the main focus to be on her face. but I also want it to be a little bit interesting around her. Just, just a little bit. So now I'm just doing some marks behind her, like maybe there's a shadow or a tree hanging down behind her. So I'm just taking what's left over on that stump, on that blending stump, the graphite, and just making sort of some ghostly looking shapes back there. When I run out of graphite, you'll see I will dip it down into that dark shadow and then come back up and put more in there. And I decided it just wasn't getting dark enough, so I'm taking a little bit of lead of my graphite pencil and just putting a little bit more in there and then smoothing that out and sort of, pressing it down into that paper. So I think she's pretty much finished. I really enjoyed this. I hope you did, and I hope you learned something. And I will see you again really soon. Thank you for watching.